All right, how's it going, guys? I took CBSE last week, February 12th, and I passed. I'm currently filming this February 19th, so it's a week after I took the exam and I got my results. And I want to make this video pretty much showing I think the best way to approach CBSE studying, because it's a fairly new exam that SGU has told us to do. And there's specific ways that I think every student should be approaching it. So I'm going to go through what you should be doing. Now, there's two groups of people that this video may apply to. The first group is people who are in post MNI. So that means you finished MNI. That's pretty much the last exam where they give you completely new content, and you're doing the final spiral that SGU teaches you. And that would include the exam CPRH, GOER, and DNPR. So these are the three exams that you have left. And during this time, this is when you start your dedicated studying. Okay. Then we have the second group, which is people who failed CBSE the first time. And there's some things that are similar between these two groups, but there are specific things that each group should focus on when it comes to getting ready for CBSE. So first of all, let's start with the post MNI group. So now that you're done MNI, you should be getting UWorld. Okay, UWorld has 3,600 plus practice questions. So it has a lot of practice questions. And SGU is going to give this to you. And your goal should be, so let's say right now it's February, and you're taking your CBSE in June. You would have around 3 to 4 months of time. And your goal, number one, should be to clear these 3,600 questions by the time you take CBSE. Okay? This means that once you finish MNI, you should start doing UWorld questions. The number one most important thing to do is to calculate exactly. If you have 3,600 questions to do, and let's say you have to do it within 100 days, in this way, you know that you have to do 36 questions a day approximately. Obviously, there's going to be some days where you don't have time because you have one of these exams on that day that you won't be able to do questions. But you have to get a ballpark area of how many questions per day do you need to do in order to make sure that you hit 100% done UWorld. Now, when you do UWorld, there's an entire strategy on it, which I'm going to make another video for, on how to do your questions, how to approach them, how to learn from them, and how to include your Anki cards as well when it comes to reviewing your mistakes, because that's critical. But this is the number one step, is to complete UWorld. Okay? Now, when it comes to SGU material, there's once again two different groups. You can either be a student who does SGU material and follows the slides and treats it like any other module, or this is the preferred way. If you know that you're going to pass and you're in a really good spot, or if you're on the border, I'm certain that you can do what you need to pass and prepare for CBSE if you ditch SGU material. This means you're not worried about what's going on in the slides. You only focus on what that module is going to be testing you on. So, for example, if we have CPRH, then your goal would be cardio, pulm, renal, and heme. That's for that exam. And during this time, for this CPRH module, you're going to be doing UWorld questions for this. UWorld based on these. So you can specifically select if you want to do UWorld questions for cardio, and you can filter those and just do those questions. Now, another really, really important resource is RX. I think RX is great for preparing you for SGU exams. So that means when it comes to RX, when you have the exam coming up for CPRH, by the time you take CPRH, you should be done all the RX questions for cardio, pulm, renal, and heme. Okay, same thing applies for GOER, same thing applies for DNPR. So now you're shifting away from SGU material and you're preparing yourself for STEP. All right, now, so we have UWorld, we have our ditch SGU material, and then the final thing, which is, I think, really, really crucial, and anybody can agree to this, is taking your NBME exams. Now, NBME is the company that makes your CBSE. Okay, so obviously there's no eSoft quizzes that are equivalent to CBSE. They're even UWorld or RX or Amboss questions. They may be really helpful in learning, but the closest thing that you can get to your CBSE is your NBME exams. Now, there's NBME exams that you can purchase online, forms 26 to 31. And I would say when it comes to your CBSE, you should take 4 by the time you take your CBSE. And that would save the rest for your actual step exam. I've heard people say that you should take all of them before CBSE, but I know that especially this term, because you're going to be finishing and you only have like 4 weeks to prepare for CBSE, I think doing 1 exam per week and reviewing it during this dedicated time would be the best. So we have 4 NBME exams, and that means learning every question that you get wrong, making sure that you review them and unlock Anki cards associated with them and review those as well. Okay. Now, when it comes to resources that you should use, I think there's a big 3 when it comes to fundamentals of what you should know. These are your micro, your farm, and then your path. Okay. So for micro and farm, I would say hands down the best resource for reviewing, because you've learned it all. You've learned everything that you need to know pretty much during your time at SGU, during the first 4 terms plus MNI. But the best resources for reviewing these is Sketchy. Sketchy Micro and Sketchy Farm specifically. Now there's a document, if you search online, which shows an Google Sheet with all of the Sketchy Micro and Sketchy Farm videos. And it's pretty much a checklist that you can do to check off every exam, or sorry, not every exam, every video that you watch. And you should start it as soon as you start CPRH. That means if, for example, they say on the Google Sheet, I'll show you guys, it says staff, strep, for example, all those videos, there's a little check mark in between, and you should be checking them off as you watch them. Even if you watched it once during term 4, you should definitely second pass all these videos. Now for path, we have Pathoma. Pathoma is the gold standard when it comes to understanding any sort of pathology. Pathology is the #1 tested thing by far on CBSE and STEP as well. So Pathoma would be your #1 resource. And same thing, there's a Google Sheet which has a checkbox for all the chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on and so forth. And every time that you finish one chapter, you can check it off so that you keep track of that you're going through all the content needed. Now, obviously, when you're taking CPRH, it's a no-brainer that you should be focusing on the micro, the farm, and the path. That's CPRH. You don't want to be working on any sort of CNS or reproductive systems during this time. You should be focusing on your CPRH topics so then you succeed on your CPRH exam. Now, while you're doing good for your exam and you're going to score really well, you're also preparing for your CBSE as well. This is really, really important, is that you're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. You're preparing for your exams and you're going to do great if you follow this protocol. But on top of that, you're also in your dedicated time. So you're going to be reviewing for your CBSE exam, which is the #1 most important thing. Obviously, you want to pass your modules and you want to pass the term, but the #1 thing is CBSE, because by the time May comes around and you only have 4 weeks left, that's not the time that you should be starting to open up first aid. This is the time that you should be taking these exams. So it's critical, and this is the last point that I'm going to make for this video when it comes to the post-MNI group, is that once you are done MNI, this is when your dedicated starts. So you should be doing your UWorld. This is the #1 thing. Everybody that I know that did 100% of UWorld completion, everybody passed. Everybody in my friend group who did 100% UWorld completion, everybody passed. Everybody who ditched SGU material and focused on UWorld and RX and did at least 4 NBMEs, they all passed. So that's a pattern. This is not something that's been known for a while, because SGU has introduced CBSC only 2 years ago. So there's only a certain number of cohorts that have gone through this exam. Now for the exam itself, this is the last thing that I'm going to mention actually, is that it's 200 questions. 200 questions, 4 times 50, and you get a 15-minute break in the middle. Okay, so you have to strategize and have this in mind, because if stamina is an issue, you should be doing your question banks back to back. If that's an issue, then you should be treating your 4 NBME exams like the real thing. Real thing is the most important thing, because this is the best way to test if you're ready. Put yourself in a room, make sure that there's no distractions, and take your NBME exams. Okay, now that's for the post M&I. For people that failed CBSE, I'm certain a lot of you guys are within the 60 to 66% range. That means you are so close. You've done everything right, but the only thing that's missing is that you should be doing more. You should be doing more of what you're doing, and that means, this is a big thing, is that this is number one thing that you should be asking yourself. Did I 100% UWorld? If the answer is no, that's a big issue. You should be 100% in UWorld. You should be able to know that every single question, if you get a question wrong, make sure it does not happen again. Make sure that if I got a question wrong on UWorld, I take a step back and I review the Anki for it. Now, when it comes to Anki, Anking is the number one resource. No other deck. Do not touch any other deck after M&I. Make sure that Anking is your only resource, and that if you're using UWorld or Amboss, UWorld, obviously, there's ways that you can unlock Anki cards based on the questions that you get wrong, and it saves a lot of time. Then you review those. But the number one is UWorld. Notice how I did not put Anki on this side at all, because I don't think Anki is the most important thing. Anki is a great learning tool, but it's not as important as 100% in UWorld. Okay, so back to this. Did I 100% UWorld? That's the number one thing. Number two, very critical as well, is did I do my NBMEs? And if I did my NBMEs and I scored pretty low, then that means that obviously you're not going to score as high in CBSE. So you have to take another step back and see, okay, what content am I missing? What do I not know? If I go through first aid and I see every single subject, am I able to answer these questions about them? Like, can I explain it to somebody else? Or am I kind of in the middle that, oh, I would recognize it if it was on a question, but I don't know, I can't explain it. Then that's not enough. Anybody who's taken CBSE can tell you this, is that it's not like any other exam. They ask you the details of the details, okay? I'm going to write this down because it's important. Details of details. It's not like an SGU exam, okay? So if you're in the group that's not scoring as high, are you making the most of your resources? Are you going through your micro, your farm, and your path resources? Boards and Beyond is great if you really need to go back to the fundamentals, which a lot of CBSE asks you on. So these are the most important things that I think students in post-MNI group and the group that failed CBSE should be doing. Now, if there's specific issues or concerns that you guys have when it comes to approaching exam day and how to prepare and how to calm your nerves, I can make a video on that as well, because that's another critical part, and it's very personalized, I would say, because everybody has specific concerns when it comes to the exam. But those things can be answered as well. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But please follow this. If you're in post M&I, this is when your dedicated starts. So please take it seriously, because it sucks to fail. But at the same time, once you pass, I would say there's no other exam that's ever made me feel as happy and as satisfied as when I got my CBSE results. And I want that same thing to happen to you guys too, because I know everybody's been working hard, but keep it up. And please reach out if you guys have any questions. Bye.